In the quiet village of Mbale, Uganda, a young woman named Ayo became the bride of Mukasa, the son of the village chief. Everyone respected Mukasa, and Ayo hoped to be a good wife and build a peaceful family. She was gentle, polite, and full of dreams. She believed in love, respect, and learning. But from the moment she arrived, not everyone welcomed her with warm hearts. Her mother-in-law, Nalongo, watched her closely, her eyes cold and sharp. To Nalongo, Ayo was not just a new bride, she was a stranger, someone different. Ayo was educated, calm, and carried herself with quiet strength. This made Nalongo uncomfortable. She had her own ways, old ways, and she feared that Ayo's new ideas would break the traditions she held dear. She whispered to her daughters that Ayo wanted to change everything, that she was here to take the family's honor. The village smiled at Ayo, but inside the house things were different. Ayo tried her best to fit in, to serve, to be kind. But behind every smile there was tension. A storm was building, and Ayo had no idea that her greatest test was yet to come. From the day Ayo arrived in Mbale village, everything began to change. She wasn't just a new bride, she was smart, kind, and full of quiet strength. The village women started coming to her for advice. The children followed her, calling her Auntie Ayo, always laughing and holding her hand. She told them stories, taught them songs, and helped them write their names in the dirt. Everyone admired her. They said she brought calm like the cool breeze after a long hot day. But inside her new home, trouble was growing. Nalongo, her mother-in-law, watched her with sharp eyes. She didn't like the way people praised Ayo. She's trying to shine too bright, Nalongo whispered to her daughters. She wants to take our place. The daughters nodded, their hearts full of jealousy. They were used to attention. Now it was all about Ayo. Nalongo couldn't take it. She didn't care about Ayo's kindness. All she saw was a girl who made her feel small. A girl who had papers and big words. In her heart, Nalongo made a decision: Ayo must be brought down. Ayo, unaware, kept loving and serving everyone. But the people closest to her were already planning to break her spirit. One morning, Mukasa packed his bag and left for Kampala for a few days. He kissed Ayo goodbye, trusting his family to care for her while he was away. Ayo smiled and waved as he walked down the village road. She had no idea what was coming. As soon as he was gone, everything changed. Nalongo's eyes gleamed with anger. She called her daughters, and together they stormed into Ayo's room. Without a word, they began tearing it apart. They opened her trunk and threw her things outside: her clothes, her shoes, her perfumes, her books, and her school certificates. The wrapper her late mother had gifted her. The dress she wore on her wedding day. Her dreams, her memories, all thrown like trash into the dirt. Villagers began to gather, shocked and confused. Ayo's room was now a mess of colors and paper on the ground. And then, as the sun stood high above them, Nalongo lit a match. The fire caught quickly. Flames grew fast, eating everything Ayo owned. Smoke rose into the sky. Nalongo and her daughters began to chant loudly, again and again. A woman has no pride in papers or perfume. Some people looked away. Others whispered in silence. But no one stopped it. And Ayo? She returned from the well, barefoot, a water pot on her head. She saw the smoke, the crowd, the fire, and then her eyes found her clothes burning, her certificates curling into ash, her mother's wrapper blackening in the flames. She dropped the pot. Her heart froze. Nalongo stood in front of the fire, arms crossed, smiling. Now, she said coldly, you will learn to kneel before us. The air was heavy. Ayo didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared quietly. The fire kept burning. People waited to see what she would do. But Ayo said nothing. She stood in the ashes of everything she had worked for, and from that silence, something powerful began to grow. The fire was meant to break her. But it would become the very thing that made her rise. Smoke filled the air as more villagers gathered around. They didn't know what was happening, but the fire in Nalongo's yard caught everyone's attention. Flames rose into the sky, turning clothes and paper into black ash. Some people whispered. Others stood in silence. In the middle of the burning heap were Ayo's belongings: her clothes, her books, her shoes, her perfumes, her wedding dress, her certificates, and the wrapper her late mother gave her, the one she treasured most. All of it, now burning. Then came Ayo. She walked back from the well, barefoot, carrying a pot of water on her head. She smiled, not knowing what waited ahead. But as she got closer, the smile faded. She saw the smoke. She saw the crowd. She saw the fire. And then, she saw her life in flames. Her steps froze. The pot slipped from her head and crashed to the ground, water splashing everywhere. Her hands trembled. Her eyes searched the fire, trying to believe it wasn't real. But there it was, her mother's wrapper turning into ash, her certificates curling in the heat, her dress melting into blackness. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. Nalongo stepped forward, arms crossed, face proud. Now, she said coldly, you'll learn to kneel before us. Ao looked at her but still said nothing. She just stood there, quiet, still, broken on the outside, but burning on the inside. Not like the fire in the yard, but a new fire in her soul. A quiet flame of something powerful. Something rising. Everyone watched her. No one dared to speak. Even the birds had gone quiet. Ao stood in the ashes of everything she owned. But in that silence, something was born, not weakness, but strength. The fire didn't destroy her. It woke her up. Ao stood silently as the fire died down. Her heart heavy but her spirit unbroken. The villagers had watched everything. The burning of her precious things, the cruel words of her mother-in-law, Nalongo's proud smirk. But Ao did not cry or shout. Instead, she quietly picked up the pieces of her broken heart and did something no one expected. Barefoot and with no home to go back to, she walked away from the ashes and the eyes full of judgment. The pain was deep, but inside her, a small fire of hope began to grow. That night, while the village slept, Ao made her way to the home of the village headmistress. Her footsteps were soft, but her resolve was strong. She knocked on the door, her voice steady despite all she had lost. I want to teach, she said simply. The headmistress looked at her with surprise but then nodded slowly, sensing the determination in Ao's eyes. Ao didn't have much. Her clothes were torn, her shoes gone, and her books burned to ash. But she had a heart full of knowledge and a will to help. Borrowing some old clothes, she stepped outside the next morning and sat under a large mango tree in the middle of the village. Children gathered around her, boys and girls who had never seen a school before. They sat on the dusty ground, their eyes wide with curiosity and hope. With a stick, Ao drew letters and numbers in the dirt. She taught them to read and write, to count and dream. Her voice was gentle but strong, filled with love and care. Word spread quickly. More children came every day, and soon parents started to bring their little ones, hoping Ao could give them the gift of learning that had been missing in their lives. The mango tree became a school, a safe place where knowledge grew like that. Under the big mango tree, Ao kept teaching every single day. Whether the sun was hot or the rain was falling, she never missed a lesson. With nothing but a stick, a torn chalkboard, and love in her heart, she taught the children how to read, count, and write their names. The kids sat on broken wooden branches, smiling and eager to learn. Their laughter filled the air, and their eyes sparkled with hope. Ao's simple classroom under the tree became something magical. Soon the news started to spread. People from other villages heard about the girl who teaches under a tree. Parents from nearby villages began walking for hours just to bring their children to her. Some brought food, others just gave blessings. No one had seen anything like this before. A school without walls. A teacher without pay. But love was enough to keep it growing. One rainy afternoon, someone took a photo of Ao, standing in wet clothes, teaching with a torn chalkboard while children listened carefully, sitting on muddy ground. The photo was shared online. Within days, it went viral across Uganda. People were shocked, touched, and inspired. How could someone who lost everything still choose to give so much? NGOs and kind strangers started reaching out. Who is this woman? They asked. How can we help? Donations started coming in. Volunteers visited. A small idea born from pain was now becoming a big movement powered by love. Ao didn't plan any of it. She just wanted to teach. But the mango tree had become more than a classroom. It had become a symbol of strength, of kindness, of rising from ashes. The girl who was once left with nothing was now building something beautiful. And the whole country was starting to notice. The photo of Ao teaching under the mango tree, soaked in rain with a torn chalkboard and barefoot children around her, spread like wildfire. At first, it was just shared by a local Facebook page. Then, within hours, people across Uganda began to repost it. The caption read, "This woman lost everything, but still gives everything." It touched hearts deeply. Radio stations talked about her. News channels shared her story. Blogs, newspapers, and even TV interviews followed. Everyone wanted to know, who is this strong young woman under the mango tree? Soon, The story reached beyond Uganda. People from Kenya, Rwanda, South Africa, and even as far as Canada and the UK started messaging, sending love and support. Ayo's small classroom without walls became a symbol of hope for millions. Donations began pouring in. Clothes for the children, books, chairs, even umbrellas for rainy days. Volunteers came with notebooks, chalk, and big hearts. But the biggest surprise came from an international foundation. They called and said, "We want to build you a real school." Ayo was speechless. Within weeks, construction began, right where the mango tree stood. The children watched with wide eyes as bricks were laid, windows installed, and classrooms formed. For the first time in the history of Mbale village, a proper school was being built. Not just a building, but a dream finally becoming real. When asked what she wanted to name it, Ayo didn't hesitate. She smiled softly and said, "The Ashes Academy." Because she knew where it all started. In the ashes of her past, where everything she loved had been burned. That pain had not destroyed her. It had planted something new. The school wasn't just for teaching letters and numbers. It was built on love, on courage, on never giving up. From ashes, something beautiful had grown. And now, the whole world was watching it bloom. The big day finally came. The new school was ready. Bright paint, big windows, clean desks, everything looked perfect. People in Mbale village had never seen a real school like this before. The villagers woke up early, dressed in their best clothes, and walked with excitement. Music played, children laughed, and the smell of fresh food filled the air. Everyone was proud. But the biggest surprise was that Ayo had personally invited her in-laws to the opening, even Nalongo. Many people were shocked. After all they did, why invite them? They asked. Ayo simply smiled and said, "This school is not built with hate. It's built with love." Mukasa returned from Kampala that same morning. He stood in front of the building, frozen in shock. His wife, the quiet, respectful girl they tried to break, had built something beautiful. He looked around and saw smiling children, proud parents, and a big sign that read, "The Ashes Academy." Nalongo came too. She walked slowly, holding her handbag tightly, her face stiff. She saw the crowd cheering for Ayo. She saw the beautiful school rising from the same ground where Ayo's clothes were once burned. And something inside her began to shift. Ayo stepped onto the small stage. She wore a simple but lovely dress and held the microphone gently. She looked calm, peaceful. She said, "They tried to destroy me. But from those ashes, I built a future. Not just for me, but for every child who needs a chance. This school is proof that even pain can grow into something beautiful." For a moment, there was silence. Then the entire crowd clapped, loud and long. Even Nalongo looked down, her eyes wet, her pride crushed. Ayo had not shouted, not blamed, not hated. She had simply risen. And today, the whole world stood with her. The music faded. The crowd became quiet. All eyes turned to Ayo as she slowly walked to the stage. She looked beautiful in a simple dress, her head held high, her hands calm. The bright new school stood behind her like a symbol of her journey. Her pain, her strength, and her dream. The same villagers who once whispered behind her back were now standing in front of her, waiting to hear her speak. Some held flowers, some held their children close, but all of them held respect in their eyes. Ayo looked at the faces before her. Her husband Mukasa, the children she taught under the mango tree, the parents who believed in her, the elders, the chief, and even Nalongo. Her eyes did not show anger, only peace. She took a deep breath and spoke with a soft but powerful voice. "They thought burning my clothes would break me," she said. "They thought destroying my books would stop me. But they didn't know something important." She paused. The crowd leaned in. "When they burned my clothes," she continued, "they thought they were reducing me. But ashes grow roots. And roots give birth to trees." A deep silence fell over the crowd. Some people gasped. Others wiped their eyes. Her words hit everyone like a wave. Even Nalongo, standing in the back, lowered her eyes. The shame on her face was clear. She had tried to destroy Ayo. But now she was standing in front of a woman who had turned pain into power. Ayo looked around, her voice full of calm. This school was born from ashes. And now it stands for every girl who was told she's not enough. For every child who never had a chance. for every person who rose when they were pushed down. Suddenly, the silence broke into loud, strong applause. People clapped with tears in their eyes. The children smiled proudly. Even the elders nodded their heads with respect. That day, Ao didn't just open a school. She opened hearts. Her words didn't only teach, they healed. And in that moment, Ao didn't just win. She inspired. After Ao's powerful speech, the whole village stood still. No one could move, no one could speak. Her words had touched something deep in their hearts. She didn't shout. She didn't blame. She simply spoke the truth with calm strength. And that truth opened everyone's eyes. Slowly, one by one, people began to move. The village elders were the first to step forward. With bowed heads and quiet voices, they said, "Ao, we were wrong." Then her neighbors came. The same ones who had laughed at her when her clothes were burned. The same ones who had stayed silent when she was treated badly. Now they stood before her with tears in their eyes. "Forgive us," they said. "We didn't see your heart. We didn't see your light." Even the women who once whispered behind her back hugged her tightly, asking for her blessing. And then, from the back of the crowd, her in-laws came forward. Mukasa stood beside his mother, Nalongo, whose eyes were filled with shame and regret. She looked at Ao and said, "We were cruel. We tried to silence you. But you turned pain into a gift for us all." Ao looked at her gently, nodded once, and smiled. Not out of pride, not out of revenge, but with quiet peace. The village chief stepped up next. He raised his staff and spoke loudly. "This school, the Ashes Academy, is now a national heritage site. It was built from fire, but it will light the way for future generations." The crowd cheered, some cried, some prayed. Ao stood there, calm as always, her hands folded. She didn't cry. She didn't boast. She just looked around at the people who once rejected her, now standing with her. And slowly, she stepped down from the stage. She walked through the crowd, children running behind her, flowers being thrown at her feet. She walked away, not with anger, not with pride, but with quiet victory. A victory of heart, of grace, of never giving up. From ashes, she had not just risen. She had lifted a whole village with her.